Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people conform to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Manager told me I was fired as a joke, so I quit. And it checks out. I worked for a car dealership as a lot porter. I'd gotten into an accident that totaled my car right as I was purchasing a house, which led to a predicament because you don't want to buy a new car while buying a house. Shortly after buying the house, I found a different job in a field I love. So I put in my 2 weeks notice and then I went and bought from a different dealership because my wife wanted a specific car that my dealership did not sell. I also knew how slimy the one I worked for was. A few days after the purchase of both house and car, one of the sales managers asked me if I was ready to buy a car from him. I didn't disclose the fact to anyone that I bought from a different dealer. I informed him I already bought one, so he looks at me in the most serious face and asks if I wanted to pack my things. Basically because I wasn't loyal to this dealership. Knowing I already had a better job that was able to start me immediately, I said sure and turned and walked away to pack my things. He then realized I wasn't going to put up a fight, so he immediately started laughing and told me he was joking, and how they would never fire anyone for going somewhere else. But I already knew a few people that had gotten fired for that exact reason. I told him I don't appreciate being fired as a joke because first, I do have a 1.5-year-old, and if I didn't have a job lined up, he could have seriously hurt me financially. But I ended up feeling relieved because this was not a good job. The funny thing is, he called me about 30 to 45 minutes after I left because I'd left keys to multiple brand new trucks on my desk that had to have the plastic removed and get parked. Turns out since he fired me, they made him take care of the stuff. I'm now fully enjoying my new job with the best bosses I've ever had. I know I probably took it too far, but I don't regret it. I don't think you took it too far. The boss says, "You pledge your loyalty to the brand, I'll be gone with you." And you said, "All right, I'll be gone." And he went, "Wait, no, /J." I also find it so funny that they made him take over his duties. Immediately assume the position. Now, what would have changed the story here was if he fired you on opposite day. In all seriousness though, you're not wrong for quitting. There's few things in life you don't joke about. Your employment is one of them, so you did a good thing by getting out of there. Got scolded enough for asking stupid question, I will not ask again. Several years ago I worked in a print shop. We did large format printing, think larger than billboards, like entire building faces, and high quality art prints. Basically, we were living in the niche the large companies did not want to bother with. Sometimes when a lot of work piled up, I helped out by sticking brackets on the back of the pictures on which they would hang on the wall and packaging the product. On the work card accompanying the job, the width and height of the picture were marked, but a certain salesperson often tended to mix this up. Not much of an issue if the motive is clear, you would use common sense. But as I said, we also did art. And well, you might assume a certain way is up, but that might not be what the artist intended. And sometimes the motive was totally abstract and you had no possible way of knowing. Even the width and height information, if correct, would not help because you could easily flip the thing 180 degrees and see no issue. Trust me, the artist would have issues. So you would pester salesperson if what was on the work card was correct. He did not like being pestered. Having had enough unpleasant back and forth myself with said salesperson who, as an added bonus, was Big Boss's son, and having witnessed even more in unpleasanter backs and forths with the people doing this job regularly, I had a plan that just needed the salesperson to F up and the picture to be just right. Oh, and as an added bonus, after sticking the brackets on, there was only packaging left, so the next eyes on the product would be the customers. Cue malicious compliance. You think we're stupid because we do a trivial job? I'll show you stupid. And following the work instructions exactly to the letter, I glued the brackets on so that a beautiful artsy picture of an English garden had the vegetation pointing sideways. Due to the particular brackets on this picture, the customer had the total freedom of having the trees pointing left or right. I don't judge your preferences. The only important part was to keep the work instructions somehow out of the trash until the package arrived at the customer. Sure enough, fuming customer calls Big Boss. Fuming Big Boss calls salesperson. Fuming salesperson calls me. I shrug. In the meantime, salesperson realizes his F up and retroactively changes the work instructions to cover his ass. Yes, we were at the hide your F up stage of rotten work culture at that point. Everybody stomps into the shop floor where I just pulled out a slightly crumpled up work instruction that miraculously survived the weekly cleanup from under some stuff, which, surprisingly, contradicts the one salesperson is waving around. Big Boss's anger redirects and he has a private discussion with his son. You could quite clearly make out the key discussion points through the door. It didn't change anything in the work culture. I left the company and the company failed soon after. but we had a good laugh that day. I like to think that salesperson now has to work in a real job environment without daddy. I hope the customer was compensated for the trouble I put him through. It was worth it. TLDR, salesperson screws up regularly but does not want you to ask for clarification. Next time, no asking, just following wrong orders. Results in big anger that backfires to salesperson who tried to cover it up. That's exactly how you're supposed to go about this thing, though. If they're gonna continue giving you shit for it, fine. I'll stop asking, we'll see what happens. But it's kind of funny to me that a salesperson would be a dick to the production guys. Like, if the production guy does a bad job, they're paid the exact same, right? Their salary doesn't change. But when you work in sales, oftentimes you're working commission. So that's gonna hurt your bottom dollar. You think you would be nice to the people who you have to rely on to make sure you get paid steady, right? It's the same kind of mentality as people who are jerks to the cooks who make their food. It doesn't make any sense to me. The city wanted me to take better care of my gardens, so I had them approved by the local Nature Conservation Association. My house is surrounded by 2 gardens, one in the front, facing the street, and one in the back, bordering my neighbor's gardens. When my parents and grandparents moved into our house 26 years ago, they planted a thick hedge around the entire property. They also installed a rose arch over the pathway to our front door, and my grandfather was always busy keeping up the garden, planting, weeding, and keeping everything very tidy. My grandfather died in 2002, and after that, the garden was neglected for a few years as my parents were still working and my brother and I were in university/school. But then, around 2005, my mom read something that we should plant stuff to help the bees, and she took over the gardens, planting lilac, rhododendron, roses, and various berries. Later, we decided to also install raised garden beds with various kitchen herbs. My mom is now over 70 years old and has officially given the house over to my brother and me, so that we won't be taxed on inheriting it when she dies. Since then, I've been sporadically taking care of the gardens. I like them in their wild shape with all the birds, bees, bumblebees, and butterflies flying around. In autumn, we get hedgehogs, and we've been visited by a fox recently, which sends my cats into a panic. Then recently, we received a letter from the city stating that our garden was interfering with the safety of the street, because the hedge was overgrowing the pavement and contained poisonous berries which were a danger to children. Now, my brother trims the hedge every month to make sure nothing is overgrowing the pavement in any way, and while the berries are poisonous, to get them you'd have to be quite resilient because they're surrounded by thorns. They're also known to be ideal food for some local birds. So I contacted our local Nature Conservation Association and asked if they would like to have a look at our gardens and maybe tell us if we could improve anything to make them even more nature friendly. They came, looked around, and then told us they rarely see gardens so in touch with nature. They approved our gardens as especially nature friendly and contacted the city to tell them that from their point of view, any changes would be considered unfriendly to nature. And since our city prides itself with once being one of the green capitals in our country, they had to budge. Don't mess with my gardens. You are a damn fool for trying to trifle with Poison Ivy from the Batman comics garden. Clearly she has a green thumb, a whole green hand, and talks to plants. You really thought you would win that one? This is such a creative way to be maliciously compliant, though. I applaud this. Contacting the local Nature Conservation Association. What a play. Boss did not like the look of the bulk mailing stamp. Told me to remove it. Cost the company over $220,000. Back in the 1980s, I worked for a sporting goods company as a catalog designer. Small company, privately owned. I was the entire advertising department. I created 4 catalogs a year. These were responsible for most of our mail order sales, pre-internet, to the tune of around $700,000 a year. We sent the catalogs via bulk mail using a mailing service. This let us send them for a much discounted rate. To do this required the use of a bulk mail permit and placing the permit info on the mailing area of the catalog. Technically, it's called a fiche. I don't know if I said that right, but I'm not trying again. Enter a new boss, call him Ron. I was number 1, the only one in my department. For some reason, the company owner hired Ron as a favor to a friend. From day 1, he was micromanaging, questioning everything, and screwing up my very tight schedule. This was before computers were common. Everything was by hand, literally typing out copy and reducing it on a photocopier to fit, developing the photo film myself, making prints, etc. The actual printer had to add screens to the photo so they'd print, burn metal plates, and so on. All time consuming and expensive. Deadlines could not be missed, so I was stuck with several 16-hour days come crunch time. I was complaining to the owner, but he really couldn't care less. I really wanted to stick it to Ron, and the opportunity presented itself. Constant threats of my way or you're fired were getting to me. The latest pre-summer catalog was done. Summer was our big season. I had to give him my mock-up, photocopied sheets stapled together of the final catalog for his approval. A new step added after he demanded it. He looked at it and sent it back with several pointless revisions, and a note to remove that ugly permit box because it was not needed. Where he worked previously stuffed their mailers in envelopes. The envelopes had the fiche, but their mailer did this last step. I simply asked him to initial the changes as this was the final approved version and was going to the printer the next day. There was no time to check it again. So he did. I knew it would be a total mess, and it's something I never would have done in the past. 50,000 catalogs printed and shipped directly to the mailer. The day they arrive at the mailer, the boss gets a call from the sales rep. We can't mail your catalogs. Boss storms into my area of the building and is literally screaming. Ron is now pissed and yelling at me, joined by the boss. I swear, spittle and froth, vein bulging screaming, minimum 2-week delay, wasted money, lost sales. I explained what happened, the threat to fire me, and showed the owner the changes to the final copy, initialed by Ron. He was gonna give Ron a second chance until the bill came in from the printer. They had to stamp 50,000 catalogs by hand. We had to rent their permit, since that's what's on their stamp. Rental and labor was almost $8,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's 20 grand. Plus our early summer sales boost was off by almost 50K from previous years, or $200,000 adjusted for inflation. Ron was fired. I was left alone after that. Ron bought his own casket, dug his own grave, got in the box, threw it in the grave, and said, "Start filling the hole." He didn't even see it coming. Oh my God. In the business world, putting something in writing is signing your own death warrant. Why did you do that, Ron? And that's all the time we have for you today, and I hope you enjoyed this browse through r/MaliciouSCompliance. If you want to see more long-form, story-based Reddit videos, then leave a like on this video and tell me what you like about this style and format. I know I do the meme stuff a lot, but this was a lot of fun to read through some stories of people being little bastards. If you made it this far into the video, comment down below malicious, and I'll try to heart your comment. And until next time, guys, my name is Damien Lee. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing ya.